What's up, guys? Welcome to the main card minute 10-minute bet breakdown for UFC Vegas 87 Rozenstruik versus Gaziev. This is actually a pretty solid card for an Apex card in terms of name value. There's a lot of top 15 guys on this. We start the night with Umar Nurmagomedov versus Bekzat Almakhan. Bekzat's making his UFC debut. On paper, looks like a killer. He's from Kazakhstan. He's got 13 finishes in his 14 wins, 12 of those by KO. I don't trust it. He's never fought in the UFC. He's from Octagon. That's a legit promotion, but is it UFC legit? No, not to me. You're fighting a top 5 guy probably in Umar. We'll never know because no one in the top 5 will give him a chance. But Umar has looked like a killer, man. He's finished Ioni Barcelos, finished Brian Kelleher, finished Sergey Morozov, went the distance with Nate Maness, which I don't really know what the hell happened there. But either way, man, looked like a future champ in here. 16 and 0, 9 wins by finish, including 7 by submission. The submission is important here because Bekzat's only loss by submission. I like Umar to win by finish here. It's minus 140. As you know, we only take plus money bets here. So we're going to parlay it with something later on. But either way, for a minus 900 favorite to get Umar by finish at minus 140, big steal there. It could go the distance too. We don't know how tough Bekzat is, but if you're looking at his record, man, he's hit like the over 1.5 like 3 times in his 15 fight career. And now you're fighting a killer in Umar. I just don't see it happening. Up next, we got Matt Danger Schnell taking on Steve Erceg. Matt Schnell, man, if anyone remembers, he was on that show on MTV back in the day, Caged. It was out in like early 2010s. I can't help but like laugh at that and think of that. Tony Kelly was on that show too, Andrea Lee's boyfriend, funny enough. Anyways, Matt Schnell, total hit or miss in the UFC, man. Comes in, looks like a killer, gets finished, comes in, looks like a killer, gets finished. Like he just is so up and down. He did have a 4 fight win streak early on in his career, but if you look at the names on this, it's a bunch of scrubs, no offense. And then in recent years, he lost to Pantoja, he lost to Royval, he lost to Nicolau, finished by all of them. He had that crazy fight with Sumaderji where Sumaderji was beating the fuck out of him. And then Schnell got that like late armbar. He was all bloody. It was a dope picture. Other than that, has not looked great. Astro Boy, on the other hand, my boy Steve Erceg from Down Under, 11 and 1, 6 wins by submission. That's important because Matt Schnell loses by submission. Okay. He's lost twice by submission, 4 times by KO. That's 6 times he's been finished. Erceg, gonna love to grapple you, man. He's gone the last 2 fights in the UFC. I've gone the distance with him. So I wasn't trusting the finish Schnell here, although Schnell is a killer be killed guy. But I really liked the just money line on Steve Erceg. Again, minus money. We're going to come back to it. We're going to parlay it. But I did throw in some other bets here if you guys are looking for either some other parlay pieces or maybe just want to throw a flyer on some singles. So I do think the over 1.5 in this fight, it's minus 130. So it's a parlay piece. Either way, I think there's a lot of value on that. Schnell mostly goes under the 1.5. I'm not going to lie, but Erceg mostly goes over. So it's a little of who's going to dictate the fight. I think I think Erceg's going to be able to keep it going long. I like the over 1.5 in that. Speaking of the over 1.5 and Erceg by decision plus 275. Really not bad value on that. And Erceg by sub is plus 225, which I feel like if he's going to win, he's probably going to win by sub. Most of his wins come by sub, and Schnell loses by sub. So I think there's some value on those bets. But again, we're riding with Erceg money line. I'll tell you what we're parlaying it with later. Up next, we got Eryk, your boy Anders, taking on Jamie Pickett. I really hate this fight. I hate it for betting, but I have to come up with a bet for you guys, and it has to be plus money. Eryk Anders is so fucking inconsistent, and Jamie Pickett is one of the worst fighters on the UFC roster. It's the truth. I mean, he's got finished 3 of his last 4. He's lost 4 in a row. I don't know why they're even giving him another fight. Eryk Anders lost 3 of his last 4. His only win to Kyle Dawkins, who's looked like shit in the last few years. I think this is one of those fights, loser gets cut, and I think it's going to be Jamie Pickett. There's no value on any bets on this. Okay. I'm taking the over 1.5, which is the alt over because the over under is 2.5. And it's minus 185. I'm going to parlay it with Steve Erceg and it comes out to plus 102. Way better. Like that a lot more. If you guys are looking for some random singles you want to throw on this, you don't like that. I do think, again, so inconsistent. So these are totally opposite bets, but do with them what you will. Anders by finish plus 145. I just mentioned Jamie Pickett been finished in 3 of his last 4. Not to mention that, but I'm pretty sure he was finished before. Yeah, finished by Jordan Wright before that. So in his, what has he got? 6, 7, 8 UFC fights, he's been finished 5 times. I mean, it's not a great record. So Anders by finish plus 145, and also Anders by decision plus 175. I already mentioned the real over under on this is 2.5, meaning they think it's going to go long. Anders should win. You might as well just throw him by decision plus 175. That to me is a good bet. The next fight of the night, guys, we got Alex Perez, former title challenger, taking on future title challenger Muhammad Mokaev. Chayev? I don't know. I'm liking the on that though, you know? Anyways, Alex Perez, weird career, man. Comes off Contender Series, has this low-key 3-fight win streak. You're like, "Oh, okay." Beat Shorty Torres, Eryk Shelton, like, okay, these are not high-level guys. Gets the fight against Joseph Benavidez, gets knocked out. Okay. Goes the distance with Mark De La Rosa. That doesn't look great in hindsight. Arm triangles, Jordan Espinoza. This is what put him on the map for me. Juicy A Formiga, he fucking leg kick KO'd him. I was like, oh shit, this Alex Perez guy's legit. He gets the title shot off of that because flyweight is, at least at the time, was like the weakest division. This is in 2020, by the way. Gets the title shot, immediately gets guillotined by Davison. Okay. Injured after that, pullouts after that, canceled bouts after that, missed weight after that. Finally gets this fight with Pantoja in 2022. Again, subbed in a minute. So his last 2 fights, he's been subbed in a minute. So if you go back to November of 2020, he's fought a total of 2 minutes in 2 fights. That's pretty much a 4-year span. His opponent, the Punisher, this dude's only 23 years old, and he looks like a future champ. He's 11-0, 8 of those by finish. Okay, his UFC career, he's had 5 fights in the UFC, 4 of them by submission. That's important. I'm taking Mahayev money line here, and I'm parlaying it with the first fight of the night, and that gets us plus 131, which I'm happy with. I think there is so much value on Mahayev by sub at plus 140 as a single that it's just stupid not to do it. Because Alex Perez, A, just lost his last 2 fights by sub. He's lost 5 in his career by sub. 5 of his 7 losses by submission. And then you have Muhammad Mokaev, who's won 6 of his 11 wins by submission, including 4 UFC wins. Seems like a no-brainer. I don't know about you guys. Next fight of the night, Vitor Petrino takes on Tyson Pedro. Okay, I'm not going to lie. I went with a homer pick on this. I'm half Australian. I'm riding with Tyson Pedro. Vitor Petrino could be a killer, man. 10-0, 8 wins by finish, 3-0 in the UFC, 2 of those by finish. But, you know, he went the distance with Anton Turkley, Pleasure Man, who Tyson Pedro just knocked the fuck out. Not saying MMA math works like that, just saying I think Tyson Pedro's a live dog here, and I would hate myself if he wins this fight and I didn't bet on him because I just don't feel like Petrino is anyone that I should be too high on for that price. If you're looking for any other bet on that fight, I think the over 1.5, it's a pick 'em right now, minus 115. Do with that what you will. It's a risky one, but it's a nice parlay piece, whether you go over or under, honestly. Last fight of the night, guys. Main event, Rozenstruik takes on Gaziev. Okay. Gaziev could be a fucking killer. He's 12-0, 11 wins by finish. He also used to train under Abdul Manap Nurmagomedov, Khabib's dad. So this is the second fucking Nurmagomedov essentially on this card. Uh, the weird thing is though, like his last fight, his first fight in the UFC, he didn't really show his grappling. He just stood and knocked out Martin Boudet. It was a standing knockout. It was kind of weird. Jairzinho, you're gonna stand with Jairzinho? He's a kickboxer. Jairzinho's gonna knock you the fuck out. I'm hoping Shamil is dumb enough to try and stand with Jairzinho, and we get a nice slow kickboxing match. I'm a little worried Gaziev is going to take him right down. Gaziev is going to take him right down and sub him, just like Jalton Almeida did, and Curtis Blades wrestled him to death. Like Jairzinho's not a good wrestler, so little worried here. But the over 1.5 at plus 160, you cannot beat that, man. If you're looking for two other flyers to take, Rozenstruik by KO plus 125, Gaziev by sub at plus 275. All right, guys, that is it for the main card minute, 10-minute bet breakdown for UFC Vegas 87, Jairzinho Rozenstruik versus Shamil Gaziev. I'll be back next week. Peace, y'all.